Hey everyone, Min here from MHK Designs. I'm here to show you a fun new take on a gatefold card that I recently discovered, and I'm using some beautiful products from the MHK Designs Etsy shop. The pattern paper that I'm using is from the Autumnal Accents paper pack. The sentiment is from the Lift Me Higher digital stamp set, and this beautiful rose is from the Simple Rose stamp set. And I want to show you how cool this gatefold card is, because when you open it, do you see that? It's interlocking. So this is an interlocking gatefold card, and that means that the sentiment and the frame come apart. So on one side I've got the sentiment, and then the other side has the frame, and when they go together it interlocks just like that, hence the name. And on the inside of my card I've added more of the Autumnal Accents papers and another sentiment from the Lift Me Higher set. And I kind of wanted to show you how I created this. It's a big wow factor, but it is so easy to do. So what you're going to need to get started, you're going to need your card base. My card base is 8.5 by 5.5, but you could do any size, and the key is to figure out what a fourth of the size is before you do your scoring. So because mine is 8.5 by 5.5, if I just folded it in half, I would have a 5.5 by 4.5. So to make the gatefold card, instead of scoring down the center, we're going to score down either side a fourth of the width of our paper, okay? And you can use anything that you want to. I like to use my cutting blade thing because it's easier. Sorry, that was not very technical. But a fourth of this length is 2 1/8. So I'm going to start at 2 1/8, and I'm going to take my stylus, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make my fold that's going to be here at 2 1/8, and you can see that nice score line. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it over here, do another score here at 2 1/8, and this is just for the card base. If you had other ones, like I said, figure out what a fourth of your width is. And now when I fold these in, I have, let me get this out of the way real quick, I have my beginning of my gatefold card, okay? So this is the beginning of the gatefold card. Then what I need to do is I need to add my pattern paper. So for this card, instead of doing the Autumnal Accents, I'm using some papers from the Worn and Weathered Pink set. And I'm going to go ahead and matte them with some brown to kind of make it pop off of the background a little bit more. So I've got those. So let's go ahead and add those to our panel. And you don't have to use the same pattern paper on the sides of your cards. You could mix it up, do some different colors, do some different patterns to make it a bit more interesting, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm keeping mine similar because of the design of what I have in my head. But like I said, and obviously I didn't get that quite right, so let's see if I can take that off real quick. There we go. You can go ahead and do whatever you want, and all of the pattern paper packs from MHK Designs come with at least 12 different papers that all coordinate together with the same color schemes. So using those papers, it would be really easy to use different types of patterns on either side if you wanted to go that route. So after I get these placed on my card, we're going to go ahead and work on the interlocking gate part. Okay, so once you get to this point, you're just going to lay it aside. Now I have a sentiment here from the Butterfly Wisdom stamp set. It says spread your love everywhere, and I've got my coordinating rose just like I had in my original card, but I'm going with pink to match the papers, and I've already colored or watercolored that and fussy cut that out, and so that's going to come into play next. But for the sentiment and for its frame, like right here, what you're going to need is you're going to need your sentiment. You're going to need whatever color you want your frame to be. I'm doing this dark brown. And then you're going to need some interlocking dies. And what I mean by that, and I did not mean interlocking dies, I meant nesting dies. So 2 dies that can go inside of each other and can be die cut at the same time, and that is how you're going to create your frame and your sentiment. So let me show you how that's going to happen. Let me get these out of the way. I'm going to bring over my Big Shot. So I've got my Big Shot, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just die cut my sentiment. I need to turn this around, sorry about that. I'm going to die cut my sentiment using the smaller of the 2 nesting dies, okay? That's important. Make sure that your sentiment or whatever your interlocking piece is being cut out with the smaller of the 2 dies, okay? Get that on there. And I'm going to run this through. And this is going to be my sentiment piece. Take that off. Sorry, I went off camera there. So I die cut my sentiment, out of the smaller of the 2 nesting dies, okay? And I'm going to lay that aside with my card base. And next what I'm going to do, and I'm going to scoot this over so you can kind of see, I'm going to take my dark paper that I want to use as my frame. I'm going to lay my larger of the 2 dies in there. And it helps that I'm using a magnetic platform. This is really helpful when you're doing this. If you don't have a magnetic platform, I would suggest that you use some washi tape to keep the dies in place, because as you can see, the magnet is holding my 2 dies in place, but if you don't have a magnetic platform, they may move as you die cut them. So you might want to just stick some washi tape here, washi tape there. It's a very good and easy tip for that. So once I roll this through, we're just going to go forward and then I'll come back. Save a little bit of time. This is going to create our frame. So when I pop this out, and I'll move this out of the way, I'm going to move this out of the way real quick. When I pop this out, what I've got is I've got my large die, I've got my frame, and then I've got my small die with the smaller one of these. So this I'm just going to save for another project, and this frame that I created is the frame that I'm going to use to create my interlocking gatefold. Do you see how they layer together perfectly? Because the smaller one is going to fit inside that frame, okay? So let me get all this out of the way, and we're going to start putting our card together. Let me grab my pad again. So I've got my card base again. I've got my frame, and I've got my sentiment. And this is the part where your adhesive is going to come in. I like to use the Tombow roller. Whatever you want to use, you can use liquid glue, you can use whatever you want. And the key to this, for remembering what you're going to do, is we only put adhesive on 1/2 of our die cut. Adhesive only on 1/2 of our frame, adhesive on only 1/2 of our sentiment. And I like to start with the frame to make sure that everything is centered up. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take your frame, and I'm actually going to open this up so that you can see a little bit better. I'm only going to put adhesive on 1/2 of my frame, okay? So I kept this half clean, this half has my adhesive. I'm going to take this, I want it to kind of be more towards the top, and I'm going to center it where I want it to go. And I'm going to push down, and that is adhered to one side of my card, okay? After you do that, you're going to take your sentiment, and because I put adhesive on this side, the adhesive for the sentiment needs to be on this side, and that is what's going to create your gate or your interlocking gatefold. So I'm going to turn this over. This is the side that I need my adhesive on. And you could also use red line tape or any sort of double-sided tape also for this step. And I'm going to layer it in here. I'm going to make sure that it's in here to where the frame fits around it perfectly. And then I'm going to push down. And as you can see, it looks just like a layered piece of the card. But when I open it, that's where I get that interlocking feel, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I decorated the frame. If you remember here, I had my rose and a little heart and a little pearl. And I'm just going to show you just with the rose that I showed you earlier that I had colored. And I think I'm going to have it down here. I think that that's going to look the best. And what you want to remember is the adhesive does not go on the piece you're adding. The adhesive goes on whichever part of the interlock it needs to be on so that it stays where you want it. And like I did here, I had the rose on my frame, and that's where I'm going to do this rose as well, okay? So I'm going to position this kind of where I want it, and I'm going to say to myself, okay, so what part of the frame is behind here? And you can use your fingers as guides. It's going to go along this, about this much of the frame, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, fold it, put this on here again just to make sure that I have where I want it. I'm going to add my adhesive right here to this part of the frame only. I'm going to add my flower, and I'm going to kind of push down, but not too much, because I'm going to interlock and make sure that that's where I want it. And see, that's not where I wanted it because it's not going to work well. So I should have thought of that, because this one is opening up opposite to what I did before. And that's why I like the Tombow. I can just totally take that off. So I'm realizing that I need it to be on this side of the frame. And I kind of like that. I like the leaf going up into here. So I'm going to use my fingers and be like, okay, I kind of want it about right in here. Do the same thing. It's going to go right in here. So I guess a good rule of thumb is, which I just realized as I'm making this video, whenever you add elements, you're going to want to add them to the side that's off of your card base. So if I'm adding elements here on this frame, it needs to be on this side. If I'm adding them to here, it's going to need to be on this side. So happy accidents, right? I'm going to add my rose, and let's see if that's going to interlock better. Oh yeah, that's much better. And then see how it just kind of lays in there. And once it's on there, if you're using adhesive that's not totally set, you can move this around and make it exactly where you want it. So I just moved it so that you could see more of the sentiment. And let's watch how that opens and closes back up. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that fun? And it's really not too difficult. So let's look at our cards side by side. Here's the pink one that we just finished, and here's the original red one. So there you have it. I hope that you take some time today to make an interlocking gatefold card. The current challenge at House of Cards is actually to do a gatefold card, so I'd love to see if you use this technique there. I'd also love to see all of your creations using MHK Designs products. You can always upload anything made with an MHK Design product to our monthly challenge and be entered in our drawing for our monthly prize. And if you would also like to, we have a Facebook group for MHK Designs. It's called MHK Designers and Friends, and I will post all of the products that were used for these and links down in the description below. So until next time, hugs and happy stamping, friends!